There were fairly unprecedented scenes in Nepal over the last couple of days, but today was something astounding. A Gen Z revolution, as they're calling it. These were protests that were led by young people over a host of issues. There was corruption, there was unemployment, there were these political Nepo kids, as they are known. The trigger, of course, was the social media ban, which then was later revoked. Earlier this morning, the Nepal government revoked that social media ban, but eventually these unprecedented protests have taken down not just the current Prime Minister, KP Sharma Oli, who was forced to resign. It has also targeted all the prevailing figures of the political establishment of the day, whether it's former Prime Ministers like Mr. Dioba, Mr. Prachanda, etc. In fact, the Finance Minister in Mr. Oli's government was chased down in the road outside his house. He was chased down and attacked. A former Prime Minister's wife was burned to death inside her own house. There was palpable anger on the streets of Kathmandu and other cities at the social media ban, which was a very inept and a ham-handed move to do by the KP Oli government. And then they withdrew that given the kind of unprecedented sort of protest that we saw. But I think the real tipping point, and no one expected this, was the killing of the 19 children, the 19 students, many of them, and we spoke to eyewitnesses who said that many of those kids were minors, they were wearing school uniforms, and they had their ID cards out. And yet, the police, the law enforcement shot them dead, and 19 of them died. That had become a complete turning point in these protests, because up until then, it was about social media, it was about corruption, it was about a whole bunch of things, whole bunch of grievances. But when those kids were killed, it became that this government has to go. The political establishment has to go. And today, the anger that started from the killing of those students, it felled a 4-term Prime Minister in Mr. Oli. The army chief will be addressing the nation. He's asking for peace and calm. There could likely be some kind of an interim caretaker government, and eventually there will be elections. But we have seen this script play out. We saw this in Colombo 2 years ago. We saw this in Dhaka last year. And now we're seeing this in Kathmandu. The question is, what happens next? But I want to play out some of the pictures, some of the most dramatic pictures that happened today. And I want to go across to our video wall. First, there was arson at Mr. Kanal. He's a former Prime Minister, his residence. His wife, who was inside, unfortunate to be stuck inside the house, was burnt alive to death. This is the residence of former Prime Minister Jalanath Kanal. His wife was inside. She sustained severe injuries, and then by the time they took her to hospital, she was pronounced dead. Ex-Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba, the leader of the Nepali Congress, look at him, he's bleeding from his forehead. His wife, who is a foreign minister, was also attacked, Arzu Rana Deuba. Both of them assaulted by the protesters. Footage showing Mr. Deuba there coming out with blood stains and bleeding from his face, bleeding from his forehead. This was in the aftermath of the attack at his residence. Then you have the current finance minister in the outgoing government of Mr. Oli, Bishnu Prasad Poudel, who was seen running on the streets. That's the man. You can see him in a shirt and in his white vest, being kicked, being dragged, being hit on the head, being put down onto the ground. As he was trying to run for cover, he's beaten black and blue. These Gen Z protesters broke into the parliament, into the Supreme Court, into the central secretariat of the Nepal government. They set fire to every one of these buildings. Any building that represented sort of the seat of power or the official establishment in Nepal was vandalized and set on fire. Basically, this was rage against the existing political dispensation, which completely went into the territory of lawlessness. Let's listen into what the protesters were saying. They're largely young people. They are in their 20s, in their early 30s. What did they want, and why did things come to such a pass that they were willing to set buildings on fire? They were willing to physically assault some of the leading politicians in the country.
ये देश हमारा है, ये जिंजी लोग का देश है, ये नेता लोग सब भाग गया, ये नेता लोग काम चोर है, भ्रष्टाचारी है, और ये देश के लिए ये जिंजी ने 2 दिन में सब कुछ कर दिया। ये इस नेता सब ने हमारा 19 वर्ष खा दिया, और अब हम लोग का प्रधानमंत्री होना चाहिए, और अब हम ये पार्टी का नेता नहीं मानते हैं।
आज हमारे नेपाल में संसद भवन ने पूरे जनता ने मिलके, जेनजी ने मिलके आज आग लगा दिया है। कल नेपाल पुलिस ने जितना ज्यादा किया है ना, कल कमती में 19 लोगों को, स्टूडेंट को नेपाल पुलिस ने गोली मारा, चुन चुन के गोली मारा उसने। चुन ये जो हुआ है ना, ये इतना इतना कुछ ये सोशल बैंडिंग के लेके नहीं हुआ है। हम लोगों को चाहिए यूथ लीडर चाहिए।
अब ये जो पुराना लोग हैं ना, वो कोई नहीं चला सकता है। अब युवक चाहिए, युवक चाहिए। अब युवक ये चलाएगा, ये पुराना जितना है वो सब बाइकाट।
जैसे ही नेपाल के प्रधानमंत्री ने इस्तीफा दिया उसके बाद आप देख सकते हैं हालात और ज़्यादा बदतर हो गए हैं। और इस वक्त हम एक हाई राइज बिल्डिंग पर खड़े हुए हैं और यहाँ से मेरे कैमरा पर्सन युगल आपको सीधी तस्वीर दिखाएंगे। देखिए बिल्कुल मेरे सामने ये पार्लियामेंट है जो धू-धू करके पूरी तरह से जल रहा है, और ये बाजू में एक होटल है और एक बैंक है, ये पूरी तरह से जल गया। ये बिल्कुल एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें हम आपको दिखा रहे हैं जान जोखिम में डाल के, क्योंकि नीचे उग्र प्रदर्शनकारी हैं। लोगों का गुस्सा शांत नहीं हो रहा है। लोग भ्रष्टाचार और जो करप्शन था उससे यहाँ पर त्रस्त हो चुके थे, और उनका लगातार कहना था कि जो यहाँ की सरकार है उसने युवाओं के बारे में कोई सुध नहीं ली, और जो करप्शन का मुद्दा था वो इतना ज्यादा
All right, massive protests. We haven't seen these kind of protests even in 2005-06 when there were protests against the monarchy, even in the 1990s when there was protests out in the streets of Nepal. This is something that in 2 days, in less than 48 hours, a 4-term Prime Minister was ousted. Akhilesh Upadhyay is a columnist and a former editor with the Kathmandu Post. He's joining us live. Prabesh Subedi is a freelance journalist, also joining us live from Kathmandu. Sushant Sareen, senior fellow with the Observer Research Foundation, and Smita Prakash, editor of ANI. Let me start with you, Mr. Upadhyay. You know, initially, yesterday at least, the impression seemed to be that this was around the social media ban and, you know, young people were venting their frustration. How did it go from that to what we saw today? I mean, it was utter chaos, all, you know, government buildings, most of them being burnt down, former prime ministers and ministers being physically and violently attacked. How did it turn? How did it become this?
I mean, like, to be honest, I am here in Kathmandu trying to make as much sense, struggling to make, as you are in Delhi. First of all, I qualify that with all my humility. I don't know. I mean, like, one of the things that perhaps happens in these times of utter changes, not just in Nepal historically, is people go from one extreme to another. You know, don't forget all the social media platforms were shut off. I mean, until what, yesterday? Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you hear some of the odd sounds in the background? Yeah, that's very close to my home. I'm hoping it's not too bad. In any case, okay? So the protest yesterday was one of the young kids, as you put it, trying to tell the world that this is not done. This is extreme political nepotism, corruption, and also extreme neglect of the common man, you know? And there was hope that as they went to bed in the night, these students or kids or young protesters, Gen Z, that some calm would return in the morning. At least the party bigwigs must have thought along those lines or hoped along those lines. It didn't quite happen that way. It went to the other direction. I was at the Prime Minister KP Oli, ousted Prime Minister KP Oli, UML's headquarters today, and it was surrounded by thousands of people, you know, thousands of young protesters. And, you know, several footages of yours showed that there was vandalism all around.
Yeah.
This really continued until his resignation. But I also saw, you know, kind of there, how would I say, some calm return. The protesters, same protesters who were surrounding the Prime Minister's office, later I saw them right by my across street, turning into a victory rally, kind of like calm, chilled. So I'm hoping that that would be more the case. But that said, the situation is a little more, I don't want to use the word complicated, perhaps will take time to soak in.
Okay.
Yeah, and as we talk now, my sources say, I'm not 100%, the president, Ramchandra Poudel, Balen Saha, Kathmandu's mayor, and perhaps RSP, Rashtriya Swatantra Party president,
Yeah.
Ravi Lamisane, have been asked by the president to visit Sital Niwas for, I don't know, some kind of early talks, very early talks on political transition.
So let me ask Mr. Subedi this. What everybody wants to know is what happens next. I've been hearing since early afternoon the mayor of Kathmandu, apparently very popular among young people, rapper turned politician Balendra Shah. And I've also heard about this gentleman, Mr. Lamchane, who I believe was in prison up until earlier today and was released from jail. Are these now the people who will take Nepal forward? Do they have support amongst the young Gen Z protesters who have been out on the streets for the last couple of days? And what do we know about these two individuals?
Actually, we don't have that clear picture yet. As Mr. Upadhyay already said, it's simply the breakout of frustration has been for a long time among the people, especially young generation. So there is no proper plans and proper ideology guiding this sort of thing. So we cannot say how the moment move ahead.
No, but what do the protesters then want? Obviously, I spoke to some of these young kids in the afternoon, and one of the girls said, and I thought which was quite pertinent, is that of the 19 kids who were shot dead, a large number of them were apparently under 18, wearing their school uniform, had their ID cards out on their necks, and no one quite thought, and I think one of them said, not even in 62, 63 were school kids killed like this, and that's what really triggered the mobs today. So what is it that these protesters now want?
It's clear that there was a big dissatisfaction with the ruling government, not only with the ruling one, also with the all old political parties. But, the frustration is collected somewhere in the one point, but there are many ideologies, many interest groups are involved for the same, showing the frustration. That's why who leads and what happens next is not clear yet. You see, Nepal Army is trying to facilitate the process to form the new government, but actually the army in Nepal is not typically known as a political, direct political actor. So, as Upadhyay said, the president is trying from his part as he can, but we still have to wait to see what happens next.
So Sushant Sareen, I don't know why I have this almost feeling of deja vu. We saw a similar script play out in Bangladesh last year. Again, it was the army chief who came in. There was an interim government. The rage was basically young people. There was shooting of some of them. Some of them got killed in police firing. And then, the establishment there, which was always Awami League and then BNP, completely the rage was against the establishment. We saw something similar in Sri Lanka too a few years ago. Why are we seeing this script play itself out in India's neighborhood?
Actually,
Sushant, please. Yeah, thank you. Oh dear, we've lost the audio with Sushant. We'll try and fix that in just 1 second. Smita, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I get what you're saying, but what we have seen in the past 30 years is protests and instability, and this time it does seem that it is organic in nature. But you can't deny that what one of the persons that you spoke in from Nepal, who said that there are several interest groups involved out here. So there could be international players as well as national players, and Nepal standing at crossroads, teetering between reform, chaos, interest groups, frustration of the youth, which have really frustrated that 14 governments in just 17 years. So democracy is just not getting hold, and the young are frustrated. They don't remember what their older generation talk about the stability of the, during the Raja's period and things like that. They don't know about that. What they can only see is corruption, factionalism, weak institutions, and politicians just recycling themselves all the time with no accountability, whereas their children seem to be having a great life, posting these pictures on Facebook, showing that they are holidaying in Switzerland. So that's why you saw Nepo kids and things like that being hashtagged. And so, when you talk about are there interest groups, there could be. There could be China playing a role. There could be Americans playing a role. There could be so many who are seeing their strategic rivalries playing out, like they played out in Sri Lanka, like they played out in Bangladesh, and they played out probably in Indonesia also. And that could be happening in Nepal. But at present, It's not clear. Right now, it just seems like angry and digital savvy young generation out there, wanting to topple a government, but no roadmap ahead as to how they're going to resolve
Sushant,
this now.
Is it too simplistic to suggest that the same pattern is played out in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and other countries, or do you genuinely see that there is some kind of a vested interest at play, some kind of international interest at play? Because obviously from country to country there could be local factors as well. This Nepo kids thing I found quite interesting because it's the first time I'm hearing something like that in a South Asian country where youngsters have come out and said Nepo kids are having it great, but we are not.
But that's true for all countries, Zaka. That there is a lot of disgust. We've seen that in India. In India, it manifests itself in the kind of electoral verdicts that we saw in 2014. That forget about these Nepo kids. We want a completely different leadership. And we got one, right? Because there was a lot of disgust even in India that just because you're the son or grandson or great-grandson or great-great-great-great-great-grandson of somebody, and just because you think that your nose resembles your grandmother, you deserve a position in the government. It's not on. So there is a lot of disgust even in India, and I suppose among all generations across the world with Nepo kids. But there are other organic factors. I think some of it my colleagues on the panel have listed out. Smita has spoken about corruption and the kind of musical chairs that was going on in Nepal. Completely feckless governance. There was virtually no governance. It was almost like everybody was only interested in the political machinations on how to come back into power, and only being emblematic of that. So there was a lot of problems out there. Now, in this mix, there could be vested interest. But I think what happened over the last 2 days is very different from what has happened in some of the other countries, in the sense that, at least in Nepal, in the previous agitations that toppled governments, you had somebody leading those agitations.
Yeah.
There was a political leadership which was leading the agitation and which was able to pave a transition. This time, it is leaderless, number one. Number two, what is going to be the transition? Because where is the political leadership left? Every single major political party, we've seen what has happened to them on the streets of Kathmandu today, right? They literally are fleeing with their lives, and some of them have lost, unfortunately, their lives. Their houses are being burned down. Now, even if supposing you were to go into fresh elections, who will fight those elections? And the guys who are trying to step in right now, do they have the political capital, a pan-Nepal appeal? Remember, Nepalese politics is also pretty fragmented, which is why you don't get clear verdicts. Will you get a clear verdict now if you go into an election? What will the leadership be like? What are the new plans they have? It is one thing to do rabble-rousing through rap music, right? But it is quite another to run an administration and to deliver the people what you are promising.
So, Mr. Upadhyay is shaking his head. I think Sushant has a point in as much as when the protests happened against the monarchy, there were already established political parties, and then, of course, the Maoists came out and they formed a political party. And then when this move happened towards a constitutional republic, again, there were leaders who were leading that, right? Now, there are two names I keep hearing. One is Balen Shah, the other is this Mr. Lamchane. My point is, do they have pan-Nepal, popularity and organizational structure, not just voters who will vote for them, but a political party that will go out there and campaign and convert this anger into a democratic exercise of, going out there and casting votes. I mean, both are said to be in their 30s is what I'm given to understand. And not from established political parties.
Okay, good questions again. I would put it this way, let's not forget that every individual, no matter how young, has a personal agency. And it has to start somewhere. So BJP's history in the 90s, how many seats did it have? Where is it now? I would ask Indian viewers to look into it and not be so dismissive so quickly to the agencies that are like shaping up in the neighborhood. That would be pretty, I would say, standard response from a big neighbor. Some of you very bright people. One. Two, I'm not condoning violence at all. Mm-hmm. I can hear gunshots probably. If anyone is nervous among the audience here, it's Mr. Subedi and I, right?
Yeah.
But you have to hope, right? If you believe in democracy, you have to hope, and also you have to believe in constitutional process. So this idea that a party given doesn't have a pan-Nepal perception comes with such a preconceived notion that all parties start mature without any history, But it is these defining moments that make a small party big fast overnight, and the leaders are born in times of crisis.
No, I just want to give you the examples of, let's just take the subcontinent itself, right? In Sri Lanka, eventually the person and the political party that benefited is currently the president of that country, but he was an established political party. In Bangladesh, the problem is that even after a year after the previous establishment was thrown out, they've not been able to find a consensus. They've not been able to even hold elections because the existing political establishment, the trust with it was so low, or the young people were fed up with that establishment, that they decided to throw it out lock, stock and barrel. The same thing is happening in Nepal. I mean, every prime minister of any kind of political hue or stripe, whether you're a Nepali Congress politician or a Maoist politician or a UML politician, everybody's been targeted. So what's left? I mean, I don't see anything other than a political vacuum. What comes into that vacuum? That's the question.
Okay. There is always a question that the political vacuum will remain.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kind of like forecast and say it's going to be all stable within few months or few days or weeks, But there is also every possibility that new generation fed up with sustained political stability, not just new generation. I'm hardly a new generation, as you can see, but there is in these, I was talking to a lady yesterday.
Okay.
Young 24, 25-year protester in scooter. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she said this to me: I have never seen a cohorts of this size in my life, and we don't even belong to the same geography. So you know what I mean, right?
Okay.
So I don't know what's going to coalesce, but I would like to think there is distinctly a scenario, where this would happen. The second point, yes, it is organic, as Smita rightly put it. There is a possibility that there are vested interest groups in this, like such a large-scale protest. Points taken. And the idea that 1990 protests were led by parties, just as the 2006 another mass movement, and this is not, makes also this protest very unique and is a product of, how would I put it, social media platforms.
Okay. Sushant, so if we all want to hope, and we all want our version of ideal politics. But here's the thing. So I'll give the final word to Sushant, because I also have to wrap up. Is that what Mr. Upadhyay is saying is, if this goes right, this could be the equivalent of the Arab Spring in Nepal. This could be Nepal's spring.
Zaka, you know how the Arab Spring worked out, right? You know that. Now, I can understand if Mr. Upadhyay is being optimistic. Yes, why not? But look, the analogy which he gives is wrong. The BJP started in the 1950s as Bharatiya Janata Sabha, and it took decades to reach a point where it finally got a subject on which it could actually start winning elections. And even then, it took them about 12 years to win elections. The only closest example we have is a party like Aam Aadmi Party, which took about 2 or 3 years. And look, you know what a hash they have made of things, especially in Punjab, and not that they did a very good job in Delhi. I think the best chief minister Delhi had was Sheila Dikshit. So there is certainly that problem out there. And the problem is also going to be that even I am 25 years old, right? Mr. Upadhyay might be very old, but I consider myself to be 10. But the fact of the matter remains that, running an administration is a very complex task. And it is one thing to have a lot of passion, and a lot of jazba to do the right thing and want the right thing.
Yeah.
But wanting the right thing and being able to manage the right thing are two completely different things.
All right, I'll wrap up. I'll wrap up with I think it was Obama who said, "You campaign in poetry and you govern in prose." That's where the problem is. When you start governing and you don't have any experience of governing, that's when the infinite hope that people like these young politicians are sort of reviving in Nepal, that suddenly sours. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. It's a fascinating story, and as neighbors, we should be paying attention to it. We should be observing it, and we should be watching what's going on in Nepal without preconceptions or judgments, as it were.